Hello viewers, this is AKWasp and welcome to part 2 of my Fight Kiln guide. In part 2 we cover waves 1 through 10, which is basically the first quarter of the Fight Kiln, and it's governed by monsters which primarily attack you with ranged attacks. Now the ranged monsters also attack with a melee attack, and there are some intermittent majors in there as well. And also one armadillo, and the 10th wave is capped off with a Jad. Every 10 waves have a Jad, and this first quarter we're going to be taking a look at primarily the ranged monsters. Now, for all the ranged monsters, we will be using melee attacks against them and ranged attacks against the mage monsters. Now, the first 3 waves could not possibly be simpler. Only rangers spawn, so basically just activate a protect from ranged prayer and attack away. Alternatively, you could choose to use the deflect range prayer and or piety and turmoil for the respective prayer or curse prayer books. Now alongside all of these waves, I recommend using the spreadsheet, which is available in the description. It is basically just a table, there's no formulas computed in there, but it contains a list of all the monsters that will spawn at each wave, and a quick note as to my recommendations for how to disperse with them and which prayers to activate with. Now obviously for these first 3 waves there's nothing to think about, only primarily ranged monsters spawn, so use your melee setup, which is your Bando's armor, and your rapier, and the Farseer kite shield. Now the Farseer kite shield is indeed a magical attack shield, but of the 2 which I recommend bringing, it doesn't have the negative melee bonuses that comes with the eagle-eyed kite shield. Therefore, the Farseer kite shield is the better option for when you are meleeing the opponents. Point to note at this point, so I'm going to just talk a bit openly for the first 3 waves because there's nothing to them. You just melee the monsters that spawn around. There's no safe spotting involved. If you want, you could, but it doesn't give you any advantage. The only thing to remember is right here at the end, or at the beginning of part 2, or wave 2, you want to collect invulnerability crystal. So if you followed, and hopefully you came to this guide from part 1 of my guide, where I talk about inventory and equipment setup, and you should hopefully have 4 open inventory spaces, or else the rock tails are something that's easy to get rid of to make room for the 4 inventory spaces. You'll also be noticing in this part of the video that I'm using dread nips against the larger monsters. That is very useful to speed up the kills, but in no way compulsory. In no way is dread nips compulsory at any point of the Fight Kiln, but I recommend it against the bigger monsters and especially against the magical monsters. So anyways, and then also if you're looking at the spreadsheet, the wave numbers, which are highlighted in blue, are there to remind you that there is a crystal available on that wave that I recommend picking up. Additionally, I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about the difference between the prayer books. So if you choose to do normal prayers, you have an advantage if you've unlocked with Dungeoneering the Augury and the Rigor prayer. It gives you additional attack damage when using the magical and ranged attack styles. And you also have piety for your melee attack. And if you are using curses, you do not have that. You can leech defense to lower the opponent's defense, and you can also leech mage or range, but it doesn't help you as much as Rigor or Augury does. On the flip side, at any point that you don't have an overhead prayer activated, you could be using Soul Split to heal. Alternatively, or in addition to, anytime that you do have an overhead prayer activated, you could also be prayer flicking for the Soul Split, assuming that there's not more than one large monster attacking you at that time. So the curses offer you a good healing capability, whereas the prayers offer you a good offensive capability. So later on, once you become a more advanced player, you'll probably want to go in favor of the prayers because it makes for faster kills. As a side note, if you use the prayers, you also have the option, if you've unlocked Augury and Rigor, there's a chance you may have unlocked Rapid Renewal. And then here you go, beginning of wave 4, you want to grab this crystal and run down to the safe spot. Now, safe spot is at the end of this L, which is on the south side of the map. And this is a primary safe spot for, well, for definitely for the first 10 waves, and additionally for the next 10 waves. So anyways, my recommendation at this point is to just wait down here and the monsters will come to you. Wait patiently. That ranger will hit you once, and if you step up, step up, step up. Oh, I didn't step up. But anyways, at this point I put on the so I stepped out to tank the magical attack using range, while praying against the range. I recommend tanking the magic if there's only one magical guy attacking you, because he tends to hit less than the meleeer. Now go into, there you go, the top part of the L right here, which forces the ranger to step closer. When the ranger is this close to you, you can switch to melee and attack him safely, and the other two monsters in the southeast corner cannot reach you. After he's dead, switch on to your range attack again, and once more tank the range, or tank the mage. And unlike what I do right here, no, this is right. So tank the mage, but stay out of the mage's melee distance. See, when you do this, the ranger from the other side also comes onto you, which is all the more reason why you should be using the protect from ranged prayer. Now just flip on your melee again and disperse with the rangers. And this should be the end of the wave after these two are down. So back to the note, which I got slightly cut off about with the prayer book. The alternative benefit of having the prayer book over curses is rapid renewal, which when combined with the regenerative bracelet gives you 10 times 10 times health restore, which is quite a bit. So anyways, wave 5, there's no crystal there. Yeah, just run out here because in wave 5 there are no on wave 5 there's no magical creatures. And if you're ever not sure, just take a look at the spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet will tell you if there are any or there aren't. And when there aren't any magical creatures, there's really no need for a safe spot, because the only thing attacking you is going to be attacking you with range, and also melee once you get up close, which is why you're wearing your melee armor. All these creatures can also hit through your prayers, and that by through your prayers I don't mean directly hit you through, like right there just got hit for 11. So it reduces the damage significantly. I don't want to say 90%, but I mean that seems like a relatively fair number. So the protection prayers reduce your prayer, or reduce your damage. Not quite like absorption works. It works a lot better than the absorption works, but it still is a factor. So right here in wave 5 is also an armadillo. You want to trap him on the other side of this rock, and you want to use the flinch method. If you're not familiar with the flinch method, you hit once and then you step back, and you wait for the health bar to disappear. You wait. It takes a little time, but you wait for the health bar to disappear and hit him again and step back. If you do this properly, he will never hit you. Once you've broken through his armor, you can switch over to a ranged or magical attack, preferably a magical attack with the polypore staff, and just disperse them that way. Note, if you were on curses, this would be an ideal time to restore some health using Soul Splith. Now make sure you grab the crystal on the way back, since it's right in front of you, and head back down to your safe spot in the south, which is the L. If you ever don't know where to go, just go to the L, and chances are that's where you're supposed to be. In this wave, and usually you wind up just waiting down here at the bottom. I'd like to, right here at this bottom safe spot, which is highlighted on the screen, and I believe we go ahead and we tank the magical guy first again. Yes, maybe. Yes, there we go. So we tank him. The reason we're stepping 2 sides out is because if you don't step 2 sides to the side, or 2 steps to the side, the dread nip will sometimes get stuck and not be able to attack the mage, because he'll spawn within the safe spot and not be able to engage in melee combat. So right now we run up to this top spot again, wait patiently while the ranger approaches us, and now he is in safe melee distance, and we can take him out in melee without the others attacking us from the other side of the L-shaped rock. I guess it's more of a protrusion than a rock, but whatever it is, I'm just gonna keep calling it an L-shaped rock. So yeah, dread nips again, not compulsory, but they make for much faster kills. They do tend to get stuck around this L-shaped rock and sometimes behind your character itself. Like in this case right here. If he does get stuck, just step out of his way. Preferably don't step into his way like I did right there. But just step out of his way. The key thing to do with the majors is to make sure you're 2 spaces away, or they will melee you, and especially when you're using your Armadillo gear, and you're trying to tank their magical attacks. Their melee attacks hit very accurately. Not necessarily very strongly, but very accurately. Now, with the crystals, I recommend picking up the first crystal, which is invulnerability, then the restoration, and the magic, as you can see in my inventory at the moment. And I also recommend picking up the ranged. And I only recommend picking up the ranged, which is about to spawn right now. No, or is it about to spawn next wave? About to spawn next wave. On the first quarter, or on these first 10 waves. And that's because in the second 10 waves, there will be a bunch of very nasty magical creatures who are incredibly weak to range. And so it's an ideal time to activate that crystal. And that's the only ideal time really to activate that crystal during the start of the game. Now if you run up here, you will be able to get just one guy in melee distance. See? Once again. So you're only taking on one enemy at a time, basically just saving you a little bit more health, saving you the need to brew, saving you the need to, soul splitter, anything like that. And then he should step closer. I might have to go back into that safe spot. Nope, don't have to go back into that safe spot. Just chill right out here. And once again, switch on your melee or your magical defense gear, and step 2 spaces away from the mage. In this case, he stepped up close to me, which is unideal. If that's the case, just step away from him again. Don't want to be in melee distance of that magical, especially of the bigger magical ones, the magical cats as I call them, the cat zeks. But of these just mages, they still hit very accurately. They don't hit anywhere near as hard as the cats do, but they do hit really hard. Now, a side note is that these waves are probably the fastest to get through and the easiest to get through of all the waves. So if you are a person who has a lot of difficulty with Jad, I recommend practicing just by going through these first waves and just practicing on Jad until you feel safe and comfortable. Not safe, but you feel comfortable dispersing of Jad however you see fit. I'll mention in more detail once we are actually at that part of this quarter, but Jad is weakest to magical attacks, and therefore I recommend using those against him. Now right here we see, here we go. So I cleared up an inventory space and picked up that range crystal and made it back just in time. Did I? Yep, just in time. So make sure, try and give yourself a bit more of a window of caution, or a cautionary, time to get in safe distance, or that magical cat right there. I call that a magical cat, by the way, in case you haven't figured it out by now. Will just destroy you, unless you have your protect from magical prayer overhead activated, which you will be in a moment, because we safe spotted this guy. Well, not really a safe spot on that guy, but safing from the cat, which I consider to be a safe spot. Switch to your range gear, make sure you're 2 spaces away from him, but not so far up. So just 2 spaces away, but also 2 spaces up. That way, if you're only 2 spaces up and not 3, the enemies from the west won't be able to get over to you, and you can safely disperse with the enemy in the east while you take care of the enemy on the west. You can see right here that even with the overhead prayer activated, he just hit me for 15, 23, 9. He hits a lot, which is a big reason why you want to use very, very high, very accurate, very high damaging, ranged weapons, so that you can down him as fast as possible, which is also a great reason to have the dread nibs. because the faster the cats go down, the less damage you're going to take from them. I don't remember if I've mentioned or not, but clearly we can see that the Rangers do attack with melee in addition to attacking with the range attack primarily, but you still want to pray against range. Now at this point, which is wave 9, there are only Rangers that are going to spawn, so again, this is a non-issue for safe spotting. Just go ahead, turn on your overhead range prayer, and disperse with them as you see fit, preferably with melee. And I also like to note at this point, since this is a relatively easy wave, that to disregard the inventory setup which I have in this particular guide. The reason that this inventory setup is as it is because this was filmed as part of Born for PVM's Top 10 Challenge, wherein at the end of this clip, I took down both Jads, or the double Jads on wave 36 and Har-Aken, all at 0 brood down stats, and I wanted to give myself the best chance for succeeding, and so I have these Pakyak winter storage scrolls for banking away the gear which I don't need, and just making sure I had an abundance of brews, as well as the summoning cape and the regenerative braces. I wouldn't recommend these in any normal circumstance, but the method which I use is exactly the same. Leave the strength crystal. I have not found a useful use for that strength, for any strength crystal. This is wave 10, this is where Jad spawns. In this particular instance, there's only a ranger on this side. Once he's dispersed with, Jad will be available to safe spot. So anyways, like I said, ignore my inventory setup. Use the inventory setup which I recommend in part 1. All the footage for the rest of my guide is from this particular attempt, because I did a very good job of adhering to my safe spots, and I saw no need to refilm it. So anyways, for Jad, you want to switch on to your magical attack weapons, and not Polypore, but preferably the Armadillo spell, because it will just completely destroy him a lot faster. You want to start with your ranged, protect from ranged, because you are significantly weaker to ranged attacks. You have low range defense in this gear, and you have a high magical absorption, so you can actually survive more magical attacks than you can survive range attacks. Now when he stands up on his hind legs like that and throws a fireball at you, that's a magical attack, and when he pounds his front legs like that, that is a ranged attack. So just stand by and keep on hitting him. Don't panic, he will keep hitting you through your protection prayers, but that is perfectly acceptable. It is nothing to panic about. At any point that you find yourself too low on health, just step back. Don't step out, don't step north, just step back. If you step back safely, you'll be able to heal, he won't be able to hurt you, and you can just restart the fight again. So anyways, this is the conclusion of part 2 of my Fight Kiln guide. Be sure to check out the spreadsheet in the description of this video. The spreadsheet contains a detailed walkthrough of my recommendations of which monsters spawn on which level, or on which wave, and it is just very, very handy to have a printout or a second monitor with the spreadsheet while you are completing these waves. Check out the entire Fight Kiln guide, which is combined into a playlist, which it's rather long, so it's segmented into 6 sections. Please leave a comment below. I will try to answer your questions. Consider subscribing to my channel, and thank you for your support, and have a nice day.